So maybe something to do again. Once, I might have a word with Ben and Midge about it. Maybe do something like that once Nostra back releases. Get just a small group of us playing co-op in one nation. Played hand in hand with William as Nimitz in the Pacific scene, where I was MacArthur handing the army in that theatre. Those games are good. Like, that is definitely one of the really interesting ways of playing Hearts of Iron, where you're all responsible for just one narrow area. Mordred is not the First Lord of the Admiralty. Mordred is the First Lord of the Admiralty. Co-op games tend to be a lot more fun, in my opinion. I've been doing those in Hearts of Iron 3 and they've been a blast. EU4 is much worse for that in Hearts of Iron. You can usually get a rule set that makes people happy in Hearts of Iron, but there's just too much ability for players to what they like in EU. True. I actually find that a lot of the drama in Europa Universalis 4 is because the people who tend to get upset don't recognise that EU4 is... it's a dynamic game, like we've seen here. When we started out, we were like, oh, Vern is completely dominant, Vern is going to be completely unopposed. And then there was a coalition of players that got together and opposed it. That's something that you can have in Europa Universalis 4, which is basically impossible in any other strategy game, except maybe for, like, Crusader Kings. Even there it'd be difficult. Because diplomacy is constantly switching. It's never completely stationary. Alliances shift, alliances change. You just need to have rules which encourage that. So, for example, the fact that great powers are very limited in who exactly they can ally. So as soon as you become a great power, if you climb on the great power list, then you have to break alliances, which again breaks apart the stagnant situation of diplomacy. It's one of the things I love about Europa Universalis 4. It's self-balancing. Like, if one player starts to run away with the game, then more likely than not, other players will start to feel threatened by them and will band together. Then once that threat has been dealt with, they will fragment again as their own interests start to diverge. Look literally at real life, the Napoleonic Wars. Think that's EU4. Yeah! Allies come and go in wars. Precisely. Arboran requesting you come to the raid in the Bjornrik war against Bjornrik. So is Bjornrik about to fight them again? The Emperor has failed to defend Arboran against foreign opposition. Imperial authority is rather low. So Bjornrik's going after Arboran. Who else do they still have a truce with? So they'd still have a truce with Adenica until 97, so next year. Then I bet that Adenica's going to come knocking again. So it would kind of be in Bjornrik's favour to take the stuff over here first. How long's the Lorent peace? Probably 1709. Yeah, it was a 15 years. It's the maximum. It's like EVE politics. Your enemy in one war is your ally in another, even while you're invading each other. Yeah. So Phoenix Empire is down to 250,000 men. They can only pip their manpower 2 more times for another 400,000-ish. And then it's mercenaries. But Phoenix Empire does have a pretty solid economy. Are you still in the process of building up your numbers? No, you've actually lost a bunch. That's not good. Meanwhile, soldiers sat sitting here on 1,000,000 manpower with an army of 546. They could do with expanding their standing army quite significantly, because they're actually almost at their cap. They're going to reach that next month. Cap. Nope. Nope. Almost. Probably from attrition they're taking from, like, this. But yeah, they really need to expand their army. I mean, they're making 300 ducats a month, which is a huge amount. They could quite easily pay for another 100, 200 divisions. Regiments, whatever you want to call them in this. Okay, so Ovdil Kanzad, did you vassalize this? You did. Interesting. And also Gatub. Then Banjasid is an ally. Though in a coalition against Phoenix Empire. Ovdil Tunga, digging, digging, digging. Level 6 almost. That is a coalition that might actually trigger. If Banjabid does it, then Ovdil Kanzad could well find themselves at war with Phoenix Empire. Which I don't think is quite what they had in mind. Meanwhile, Vern is actually pushing into Phoenix Empire now. Here comes the counterattack. 180,000 against 177. Vern with plenty more troops to send into this. Admittedly, so do the Phoenix Empire, although they're going to be sitting here taking rather a lot of attrition. Vern fighting at a -1. Is this all just forest? Grassland, hills, hills, highlands, highlands. So fighting in this area... Yeah, I guess taking the fight there is fine. Vern coming in with another 100k. They're just kind of going, Phoenix Empire, just stop. Just stop. Can you see a religion map? Sure, let's see the end of this first, and then we'll take a look at the religion. Oh yeah, the League of Cambrai was messy as heck. How's the session going? Hey Malo Diablo. It's good so far. Had some really big fights against Vern, which has been nice to see. So yeah, this war that Poet just posted. It was Venice versus the Papal States, France, the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, and Ferrara. Then the Papal States and Venice against France and Ferrara. Then the Papal States, Venice, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, England, and the Swiss against France, Ferrara, Scotland, and Florence. Then it was the Papal States, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, England, Milan, and the Swiss against France, Venice, and the Duchy of Ferrara. So Venice completely switched sides. That's funny. So this, I think, is the last stack of reinforcements that the Phoenix Empire can bring in. Yep, that's it. 500,000 versus 500,000. There we go. We've topped 1,000,000 men in one battle. 1,000,000. And the casualties aren't actually that big considering the sheer number of people who are fighting there. Crazy. Alright, so you wanted to see the religion map mode. There you go. So we've got Rebellion. We've got Regent Court, although pretty much the whole country has been converted to Rebellion. Because Regent Court sucks. Skulldiric up there, having taken out the Thought. Regent Court and Westmoors. And Adenica. Coronite, seemingly being knocked aside by Rebellion. Although Arboran is remaining Coronite. So only Arboran. Oh no, and a Renan. Rebellion taking hold in Marhold. Answer Worship has appeared throughout the Dwarven territory, although they've actually gone Regent Court. That's interesting. So I know that a lot of people were urging Tanya to go Regent Court so that she could get the Adian God, because he has the cavalry combat ability, so we'll need to check out their cavalry combat soon. Then we've got Feast of the Gods, the Kailin Worshippers, the Kodave followers, the Enku followers, a real hodgepodge Igmagthol in the Forbidden Plains and the Lake Fed. New Sun Cult being pretty dominant throughout the Phoenix Empire. High Philosophy in Rahen. And then the New World, we've got The Thought in the former Gnomish territory, Skildirek in Bjornrik, Coronite over in Istranar, then Spring Court in Yordland, and that's all Yordland. Is that all Yordland? Oh, that is all Yordland. I had not quite realised just how big Yordland was. Have they taken that during this session? I feel like they have. I think that Yordland has actually grown a lot during this session. Yeah, they're fourth great power. Man, we really need to get a player for Yordland. Like, really, really badly. That could be a serious contender in terms of, like, geopolitics. Where were we? Totemist, Rebellion, Regent Court, Mixture, Rebellion, Chaonism, New Sun Cult, Rebellion. Oh, and then Ovdar, Verkelgulen are New Sun Cult, and Ovdar Kanzad are ancestors. For the ancestors! Right, so we wanted to see Oslam Azdir's cavalry now. 95%, how does that compare to a Denica? 98, oh my gosh, you two are so close. And actually having 95% is bloody impressive, considering they have a minus 20 inbuilt because they're dwarves. So I'm kind of wondering if... That was doing magic as well, I just realised that. Oslam Azdir switched away from dwarves to like orcs. They would have 115% cavalry combat. How are the pips for their cavalry? I mean, they're not bad. The Mecha Ram cavalry are the really big one. 6 shock. I think might actually be one of the best. No, actually, I would say that the orcish cavalry is better. Human. Yeah, okay, dwarven cavalry pips are really not great. But still, 95% cavalry combat is really, really good. And yeah, they have gone Adian. Cavalry combat plus 20, yearly prestige plus 1. Lorent is also Regent Court, Lorent's also Adian. And Lorent's combat is 35 infantry, 55 cavalry, and 20 artillery. So Lorent has a really solid, like, just very versatile force. And I think that Torshin's done a really good job with that, because when I was playing as Lorent, I think I focused too much on the cavalry. I shouldn't have. Like, the cavalry buffs are nice to have, but they're definitely not make or break. Going for the more versatile, especially with the 35% infantry, I think that makes a lot more sense. Are there any Centaur nations left? No. The Centaurs were wiped out by the Tribal Federation. Not Tribal Federation. Lake Federation. What's the orange below the New Sun Cult? Yeah. Old Sun Cult! One tiny little area in Maquette. Cavalry is better in small fights than massive ones. Yes. Cavalry are better early on, they're better in smaller fights, and they are much, much worse in the truly extraordinarily large fights, because then you are entirely reliant on your own manpower. Whereas infantry, you can bring in mercenaries if you need to. Although I guess if you have enough like manpower pool, like if you get to like Vern levels of manpower, then you just keep slackening standards and you never need to use mercenaries. So I guess it's kind of like mid-game, cavalry fall off, and then end-game they come back again. And I would say that we are passing through the mid-game now. We're like early end-game. Yeah, coming on to 1700s, we are definitely early end-game right now. I would say early game is like 1444 to 1550. 1550 to 1700 is mid. And then 1700 till end is end. Well, late. End is like 1800. End is when industrialization comes along. Which is a good point. Where are we at in the institutions? We are on the verge of the Enlightenment. And then industrialization 1750. Yeah. Meanwhile, Lorent is buying a lot of stuff. Those are buildings, right? Counting houses. Counting houses are... workshops. Trying to get that local production efficiency up. Probably in the wine provinces. At least the elves don't have 150 plus discipline like last season. Yeah, they toned the elves down a bit, which was definitely a good choice. Pretty historical as well, as cavalry made a big comeback in the 18th century with cuirassiers and especially better breeding of horses. True. Yeah, that's true. Which is why you had like the British Life Guards, the French cuirassiers, the everyone's hussars coming back into the fore. That's why the big charges of the cavalry were so important in the Napoleonic Wars, which is why when Napoleon's horse dude didn't make it to Waterloo was kind of a big deal. Nay. Or came late? I forget exactly what happened there. I know that he screwed up in some way. Because the cavalry had multiple purposes in Napoleonic, and actually American Civil War as well, where they played more of a recon role, as well as battlefield charging role. Not Ney, it was Murat. Thank you. Murat was missing. Two Napoleon cavalry and artillery were strong as any other combo of forces, which is very interesting. I think it's Napoleon's Grand Battery that I was most interested in. Also just like Le Grand Armée. Concentrating your forces. I mean, one of the things that really gets me about Napoleonic Wars, which you just don't really realise, is how much about maneuver it was. Like when the different contingents arrived in the battle. And again, you saw that in the American Civil War as well. When the different generals and their various companies, divisions, corps arrive in the various battles, and when they were delayed and when they weren't. All of the Spanish and Austrian riding schools are from that period, and also the introduction of the Arabian blood strains into the European horse pool, which were thoroughbreds, i.e. modern race horses come from them. Yeah. Like, I like to imagine that I'm pretty decent at military strategy, but I gotta say, playing Ultimate General was an eye-opener in, like, more modern strategy. Like, medieval stuff, like archers and infantry and cavalry and sometimes, though very rarely, siege weapons. I got that pretty down, but, like, early modern warfare, I didn't know that much about it. I still really want to see a decent pike and shot game. That's the one period of warfare which I know basically nothing about. I just know that pikes and guns, good. Cannons, really freaking early, not great, but starting to have more of an effect. And that was kind of the death of cavalry during the pike and shot era, Spanish tercios. And then how much of a proportion of your unit was pike and how much of it was shot. And the ratios, and why you choose those ratios. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I just don't know anything about that period. Which is bad, because that's also when the Dutch got independence, and I should know that stuff. What game are you recommending? Ultimate General. Yeah, Ultimate General Civil War. Really, really good game. Mount Blade with Fire and Sword is the only pike and shot game I've played. Yeah, and that doesn't do that justice. I'd like to see a pike and shot Warhammer, pike and shot Total War game. I think that Total War could do it now. Especially as they've started doing some mixed units, like in Three Kingdoms. There are a couple of units that were a mixture of pike and bow. And they also have some like multi-weapon use units in Troy, where they could go one-handed, or sword and board, or two-handed. So I think that Total War tech has risen to such a stage where they could actually do it justice. 5 years ago I would have said no. Particularly with seeing how they implemented like Empire handgunners and Empire halberds, and how you have to use weird ass checkerboard formations in order to keep line of sight. Makes that a lot more difficult. Excited for Total War Warhammer 3 combat. Actually decent sieges, count me in. Yes. Heck yes. Because sieges were really the one thing about Warhammer I didn't like. Like, Warhammer as a whole, as a package, it's a masterpiece. Total War Warhammer is absolutely bloody brilliant. Except for the sieges. And they're changing those. If you want to know more about Napoleonic War, David Chandler's The Campaigns of Napoleon is highly recommended. I started watching a couple of YouTube series about Napoleon. Especially, there was a really good one on the different marshals under Napoleon. How they got their marshal's baton, and then kind of what they were known for. And it was a rating. Like, which were the top ones, which were the worst ones, and why the worst ones were the worst. And very often it was like honorary marshals or political promotions. And then the top ones and what they achieved. And some of that stuff is just like, damn. Hey, Super Bond. Sardu indeed. You can do battles where pikes are useful in Empire, but you have to create a really specific rule set to force them to be used. Empire had a lot of line of sight issues, which is why I just... So having seen the remaster of Total War Rome, I want to see a remaster of Total War Empire. I don't think that they necessarily need to do another Empire Total War, because I think Total War Empire actually did a pretty darn good job at that. I just want to see a remaster, where they take all of the things, especially UI, and apply that to Empire. Because one of the real problems with Empire is you can't move formations. And in a game which is, or in an era which was all about formation warfare, the inability to move an army as a formation is criminal. History is so amazing, so many things have happened, you'd have a hard time thinking up in a fantasy setting. Yeah, which is why, like, when I do eventually, at some point, probably in the future, come to doing some world building, which I do really want to do, and I'll do it on stream as well. One of the things I've been thinking about doing it is actually starting far further back in history than the setting I actually want to do, because that way you can kind of track the rise and the fall of the empires, and you can build a much better, a more realistic background to the current situation in the starting year. Did I see Drax's recent video on Admiral Lee? No, I haven't. Oh yeah, is this war still going on? Kind of forgot about this one. I have a feeling if I go back on this, then the player also goes back. Yeah, see, I think he's actually trying to read the different stuff, and I keep on closing it for him. I'll leave that over there for a bit. Because that's not me opening it. That's the Phoenix Empire player. In fact, let's just go and look away. There we go. So, Krynvar building a bunch of troops again, trying to get back into things. Krynvar still has Began's expedition, like nothing has really touched the Dwarven hold down there. Nor Spider Wretch. Nor Skewer Drake. Although Skewer Drake I think is owned... Oh no, Skewer Drake is independent? You've survived? This long? Blimey. Did a load of research many years ago into Marshal Bernadotte, reached the you'll have to learn Swedish to go further point and just didn't, but he was fascinating. Yeah, Bernadotte, the French Marshal, became King of Spain, and the current Spanish dynasty still on the throne is his dynasty. And when he was basically given permission by Napoleon to go and become the King of Spain, Napoleon's thinking, I've got a puppet here. Nope! Bernadotte went like full Swedish when he became the King of Sweden. Sweden. Yes, I meant Sweden. I don't know why I was thinking Spain. I meant Sweden. And I knew I was trying to say Sweden. Just tagged around to Anbennar looking at cavalry. Centaurs don't rank that high, and the cav pips looking at them. No, but the centaurs get a lot of buffs to cavalry combat ability, and also you need to remember that centaurs have the horde ability where they has 25% more shock on flat land. And I think they may actually get more than that. I think they may have some modifiers. Bernadotte was friends with Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's big brother, who did become King of Spain. They were sisters and they were friends long before that. Yeah, Bernadotte was definitely one of the really interesting ones. I need to find that series and link you because it was a really good series. Let's do that now. Just leave this battle going on in the background. Have a nice little background chorus going on. Napoleon's marshals. Ranked, all parts. There we go. That's the one. Epic History TV. Really good series. Ooh, loud. So go and check that out. It's like, don't be put off by the fact it's 3 hours long. It's basically 6-part series put into one video. So each part is like half an hour. Really, really good. Very, very interesting if you're into Napoleonic history. And very well put together. It's just a really solid series. A lot of the stuff that Epic History TV has done, it's been really good, actually. Alright, so Vern and the Phoenix Empire are fighting again. Phoenix Empire do have a lot of reinforcements. Vern just keeps on just throwing everything in. Basically saying, I still have 500,000. What do you have?